What is up, YouTube? My name is Trinity and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. So a lot has happened since I last uploaded my video last week. I went on a little road trip to Pennsylvania with my friends for a day. College started back up. I've started my internships and I'm now tatted. Look at these. They're kind of hard to see. I have one on my shoulder too. Kind of hard to see, I can tell. But basically, as you can probably tell, they're Mortal Instruments runes. I decided to get them in red instead of black so they didn't turn blue as they age. I think they came up pretty damn well. The tattoo artist was so nice and he said it was so badass that for the first time ever getting tattoos, getting 3 was pretty cool. If you guys don't recognize that, this is Clairvoyant Sight. This is the obvious Angelic Power. And then the one on my shoulder is Fearless. This is the only one that's having the scabs start to fall off, and I think it looks pretty good. I'm hoping these ones look as good because right now they're kind of like brown and crusty, so I'm hoping they look a little better when they're healing more. So today we are talking about aliens. Out of every supernatural or paranormal topic I talk about, this is the only one I give a little credence to, just because the universe is infinite. Now, I don't think I believe in aliens in the way that a lot of movies and, you know, pop culture portrays them. I don't think it's a little green man with a big head, big eyes, standing up right on 2 legs. First, I think if we're gonna encounter aliens anytime soon, it's going to be in the form of bacteria or obviously something adjacent to bacteria. I don't think we're going to find very complex organisms, at least floating out in space or on the moon or something. Also, if we do find very complex organisms, I still doubt that they're going to look like us humans. I feel like it's a little narcissistic of us to think that us being one of the most, I don't want to say unique because that also sounds pretty like on a high horse for us, but kind of unique for the animal kingdom. I feel like it's kind of narcissistic to think that the one creature that we find out in the universe that isn't from Earth is going to be just like us, you know? I remember this preview for a movie that I never watched. I really wanted to. Basically, these people, they were astronauts, they were out in space, and they found this fluke-looking creature. Like, it looked like a flatworm fluke that you could find in the ocean. And it was chill, it was just floating around. They did experiments. I think they killed it, and then they used electricity to bring it back to life, and then it started attacking everyone. If you guys know what movie that is, please let me know in the comments. I've been wanting to watch it, but I don't know what the name was, and this was years ago. So, the only thing that I keep saying this gives me pause, this gives me pause, but the only thing that makes me think that maybe there could be more intelligent things out there that are closer to Earth than we realize are things like the Arizona Lights phenomenon or the Phoenix Lights phenomenon. So if you guys haven't heard of them, I will get into that in a second, but essentially the gist of the story is these 2 huge giant crafts, 1, maybe 2, there's a theory about the second one, thousands of people saw them over Phoenix, Arizona, and other cities. And it's not easily debunked. Of course, the US military and, you know, government, they have an answer for it, which could be true. I'm not saying it's not. It's just, it's so kind of out there, and their motivation for doing something that thousands and thousands of people saw and recorded kind of seems a bit strange, considering they're saying this is technology they were testing, or there's theories that it could be a new kind of weapon or whatever else. But basically that's the only thing that makes me think, have we encountered hyper intelligent life like us? Like, they'd have to be even more advanced than us to figure out travel like that, because I don't think we have anything like that, at least nothing that the general public knows about. I don't know, it just makes me think, because it could be a lot of different things. I don't want to just jump and say it's definitely aliens, like, you know, Ancient Aliens tends to do. But my rationalization, like, if it is aliens, they're really intelligent, and what else could go along with that? And I know that's a whole rabbit hole in itself. We're not talking about aliens as just a general subject today. But if it's the government or the military or whatever else you want to call it, what was their motivation for like showing their hand in front of thousands of people. It's very confusing. Maybe if I was in the military or higher up in a secret organization, I would understand it. But since I'm not, we're gonna put on our tinfoil hats and speculate. So this happened on March 13th, 1997. A series of unidentified flying objects were seen passing over Arizona, Nevada, and the state of Sonora in Mexico. So this encounter happened between the time of around 6:55 p.m., which is when one of the first reports came in, or the first report, and 10:30 p.m. So like I said, this happened in two separate events. One was a big triangular craft that looked kind of like a carpenter square. I have one over there that I use for drawing and stuff, basically to make grid lines. But, you know, it's basically a triangle, but it kind of has the middle cut out, so it's, you know, kind of pointing. And then underneath it had a series of lights, about 7, with the 7th being at the very tip and, you know, leading back. Now, people think that these lights could have been windows, they could have been just random lights, they could have been engines. Some people describe them as just random fireballs in the sky. So it all started at 6:55 when a man from Henderson, Nevada reported seeing a craft the size of a Boeing 747 flying overhead. This craft actually he described as having 6 lights on its leading edge. So I'm assuming in total there were about 12. I could be wrong and misinterpreting it, but that's how I'm gonna assume he meant it. It was traveling northwest to southeast, and it sounded like rushing wind underneath, so that could lead credence to the engine theory. Alright, now 8:15. An unidentified police officer was driving north and he saw a cluster of reddish-orange lights in the sky. He described the lights of having 2 separate points of actual light coming down, so maybe 2 bulbs in the same place, or 2 engines or exhausts, or I don't know how engines work, but you know what I mean. A few minutes later, 8:17, several callers began calling about this weird thing they're seeing in the sky. They're all very similar reports about this giant craft with several lights just flying overhead. Witnesses say that unlike the described carpenter square, that it was actually solid because the night sky was out at this point. They could see stars. Whatever this thing was blocking out the sky. They couldn't see the stars behind it. Devin Lorenz and his aunt Jamie Lorenz actually described seeing this craft from their home in Prescott Valley. They said it was northeast from where they were looking at it, and all of its lights were a reddish or orange color except for the very one at the tip, which was white. At this point, it was apparently flying at very low altitude, made little to no sound, and was just kind of hovering along, and they said it stuck around for about 2 to 3 minutes. So the National UFO Reporting Center, yes, apparently this is an actual thing we have, received this report that I'm about to read you now. We observed 5 yellow-white lights in a V formation moving slowly from the northwest across the sky to the northeast and then turn almost due south and continue until out of sight. The point of the V was the direction of movement. The first 3 lights were in a fairly tight V, while the 2 lights further back were along the lines of the V. During the northwest-northeast transit, one of the trailing lights moved up and joined 3 and then dropped back to the trailing position. I estimated the 3 light V to hover about 0.5 degrees of sky and the whole group of 5 lights to cover about 1 degree of sky. It's interesting because this report kind of says that these were separate. I mean, they were all together, but then one kind of moved around and then dropped back into formation. So maybe these were multiple crafts that were all stationed in the same craft, or I really don't know. Tim Lay and his family were also in Prescott Valley that night and saw the cluster of lights as well. He saw a cluster of 5 total lights that began moving in his direction. They began getting closer to each other as they got closer, eventually forming a tight V formation as it neared them. When it was a few miles away, he described it as a 60-degree carpenter square. It got so close to them that at one point it hovered about 100 to 150 feet above them. So Bill Grainer, a cement driver, actually saw these lights too and observed them for over 2 hours. When talking about the experience, he said, and I quote, "I'll never be the same. Before this, if anybody had told me they saw a UFO, I would have said yeah, and I believe in the tooth fairy. Now I've got a whole new view, and I may be just a dumb truck driver, but I've seen something that doesn't belong here," which I can understand that. And unlike the police officer where Like, they're identified, obviously, so we don't know who this was. But if they came forward, they may have a bit more credibility than just some random truck driver. But he's saying, like, I know you're, like, people listening probably aren't going to believe me, but this is what I saw, and I know it wasn't anything natural. And the final report that I have here is from a man that stopped at a payphone in Kingman, reported seeing, quote, a large, bizarre cluster of stars moving slowly in the northern sky. Now, of course, like in any good alien movie, what does the government say whenever something like this happens, or something smaller? They play it off. They say, oh, it was top secret military testing, which in this case could have completely been true. However, there are no logs of like any planes in the sky that night, none like in this area. But my thing is, they said they were practicing with flares, and whether they were actually using flares and that's where the light in the sky came from, or they were flying a new kind of jet or some sort of aircraft. Why would they do it over a big city? They did this over Phoenix, Arizona. Now, if they did this out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert, which they could have, if this is all true, by the way, if they did this out in the middle of the desert with barely anyone there, if one or two people saw it, they could say, you're just seeing things, and just play it off. But they flew it over a crowded city, if this is the case, of course. Or they made a really odd decision to expose whatever technology they were working with in front of thousands. I don't know which I believe. Now, there is a theory that the second set of lights was actually flares like they said. However, it was more of a cover-up for whatever was out in the sky earlier. So they could say, oh, those things from earlier, yeah, that was us too. See the flares in the sky? That's our evidence. Don't know what I believe. Apparently, something similar like this happened in 2008, but this was actually confirmed to be flares. I haven't seen any videos of that one. I'm just gonna take their word on it because there wasn't as much hype around it. So obviously it was probably something more plausible than whatever happened in 1997. But I don't know, guys. What do you think? Because aliens, I more believe than other supernatural stuff because it's not supernatural. It's almost certain that there is life somewhere else in the universe. It's kind of silly to think that we are the only ones. And it kind of conflicts with my other ideas, like the probability of finding complex life like us on another planet or somewhere out in space doesn't seem as likely as finding lower organisms, since they make up a bulk of, you know, life on the planet anyways. I don't know. I can't describe what this was. I have no theories. It is either, I don't want to say it's aliens. What do you guys think? Like, seriously, I know I say give your opinions, but I actually want to hear ideas. Legitimately. Like, I will go down and respond to everyone because I have no idea what to think about this. And like, this is the only thing that makes me pause on that one little part of my brain that's like, nah, they're not out there. They're like, if we find them, they're gonna be like little bugs or something. Moving on from that, we now are at 51 subscribers, meaning we are closer to 100 than we are to 1. So what does that mean? That means if you are not subscribed, help this channel get to 100 subscribers. What will I do if it gets to 100? I don't know. You can leave that down with your conspiracy theory down below. Thank you guys so much again for watching this video. Like, subscribe, and share this video with your crazy relative that wears tinfoil hats for fun. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.